And if they're good at it, they can get elected. Theologians say things that people want to hear. They're there, everything's going to work out all right, don't worry about it, the Lord will provide. And that sort of thing is the dependency of people needing that kind of information. But I found out in reading scientific books and journals that scientists do not speak to win approval. If the majority of people believe the earth is flat, they come right out and they say, this is the evidence we have to prove it's round. Now, they don't say it's a little round and a little flat. Then you get along with everybody. It's not the business of science to get along.
So you've made it your business to change people's perception.
I try to. I don't know that I can do that.
Okay, but yeah, you know, I'm interested in what made you suddenly go from being, say, a designer of helicopters or a consultant to the motion picture industry to basically creating a new world.
That's later. That was later on. But when I was a kid, the Depression forced people to ask new questions. How come there was a depression? How come the banks failed? They never said you'll have to go to the YCL. I said, what's that? He said, Young Communist League. I said, where are they? And they gave me an address, and I went there. And there were kids about 10 years old to 17, and they were reading Dostoevsky's book, such as Crime and Punishment, 10-year-olds. They were much brighter than the average child I've ever met. And I stayed there for about an hour. Then I asked the questions. How are you going to prevent corruption in the future? They said, well, when that time comes, we'll work on it. How are you going to house the masses? Well, we'll work on that when that time comes. I said, let's start a technical branch and work on those problems. So the lead guy said to me, you're deviating from the teachings of Marx. You'll have to leave. I said, I didn't come here to hurt anybody. I came here to help. I would help any group of people. So the vice president of the Young Communist League got up and said, let's hear him out. And they kicked us both out. So that was the end of my attempt to reach the communists.
Okay.
Then I...
Can I just interrupt there? Because those questions you just asked those communists, I'm going to ask you those same questions later with regard to your plans.
Of course.
A new society.
I want you to.
Good. That's both of us then. Okay, so
Our industries put on the same basis of pay as the soldiers. The soldiers at that time were men who enlisted for the adventure. I asked thousands of soldiers during basic training when I was drafted, what are you fighting for? What did you know what you... No, they didn't know. Really, they didn't know. And World War I, they had an IQ of 11-year-old. So soldiers never knew what they were fighting for. It's just the medals and the adventure they went into the war for. But I asked thousands of soldiers, what are you fighting for? To see what they knew.
Did you
fight? They didn't know a damn thing.
Jacque, did you fight?
No, I was sent to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, for ideas and invention.
Okay.
The aircraft industry. So they said to me, first thing, he said, can you make a bomb that moves sideways? I said, no, I can only design safety devices. I don't know how to do that. I know how to do that, but I won't. Do you understand that?
I do understand, yeah. You were a sort of conscientious objector, a subtle conscientious objector, were you?
Well, no, I couldn't do that because that would put me in prison and get me in trouble. I wanted to get my ideas out in the Army. Okay. So I told the Army men, the top brass, that I was surrounded by, such as a major. I said, I think the war is wrong. And he said to me, you better clean air, clean water, arable land, and a relevant education. That means no investment brokers, no bankers, no advertising, just people that know agronomy, geology, structural engineering, physics, science. Everything that you have, your radio, your television set, your washing machine, your refrigerator, is technology. Politicians have no knowledge of anything. They're lawyers and businessmen elected to political office who don't know the fundamentals of how people get to be the way they are. That means if you were raised as a baby by the headhunters of the Amazon, you'd be a headhunter. If you never saw anything else, I mean, no movies, never travel. And if I said to you, doesn't it bother you to have 10 shrunken heads? He says, yes, my brother has 20. Is he a bad guy? No, he's reflecting his culture. So I believe if you were brought up as a baby in Nazi Germany, all you see is Heil Hitler, Deutschland über alles, and all the books are burned, you become a Nazi. Is he a bad guy? No. That's all he's been exposed to. So I do not blame people no matter what they are. I even think that...
Film. Perhaps the gallery could tell me. But, no, thank you. So all these things are very attractive, and the designs and so on are incredibly attractive for this new world, if you like. But, you know, how do you don't just snap your finger and there's a new world. How do you achieve it?
It would be nice. But first, like anything else, you have to introduce it to the public, like what you're doing, through all the media that we can. We feel that we'd like to present a major motion picture. Peter Joseph did a tremendous job to introduce this to the whole world. And we get emails, we get hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, and people who want to help.
What I want to do is I want to go to one of these pictures. This is, let's get a picture 2, can we? This is a picture of some of your architectural ideas for a new world. There we go, it's on that screen there. Oh, it's gone again. Yep, there it is. So these are, Jack, these are some of your ideas, are they?
Yes.
And you've designed these buildings?
Yes.
I mean, they're stunning buildings. I would be very happy to live in either one of those two, for instance.
Well, actually, they're all transitional. There's no final architecture or final frontiers or final city. Even the best city I design will be a straitjacket to the kids of the future. They'll design their own cities. And if you make a statue of me, that holds back the future. So yeah, there's no more self-ego message. All of them are corrupt. Okay. Communism, socialism, all of them, fascism. So I felt, is there another way to operate the government? And I sat down and I began to design the society
Jack,
of the future.
I've got to cut in there because we're going to go for a break now. If you'd like to text in your questions or comments for Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows, why not do so now to 87778 with the word EDGE and then your text. I'll see you back here very soon. Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guests, Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows. Jacque, just before the break, we were talking about how we can achieve this utopia, if you like. But what I thought we'd do now is just show a bit of a little film that you've made.
Yes.
If we can. So if we can go to that film, and that'll give people an idea.
And if that's their orientation, I don't trust them. When a doctor says your kidney has to come out, we don't know whether you're trying to pay off a new boat or whether your kidney has to come out. So I don't trust the monetary system. So here we show buildings being assembled automatically by machine. You don't need laborers anymore. You don't need young girls standing behind counters. We can design machines to move 20-story buildings, float them out to the site, and with 1 pound of force, we can move a building a ton of weight. So the round city of the future will put every district the same distance from that center building. And the center building has everything that people need.
Well, I mean, that looks absolutely incredible, and I'm sure it would be great. I would think there probably isn't a person on the planet who wouldn't think that looks great. But I've got to get back to that question,
sure,
which we were interrupted
absolutely
by the break. And that is, how does it happen?
Okay.
How does it happen?
I'm going to try to answer that. If I fail, you have to let me know that you didn't.
Well, I think people, you know, a lot of people are texting in already. A lot of, let me just read out a couple here. This gentleman should be president of the world. Really? Kind regards, Maurice Wilmot. You are more than an inspiration. You are a motivation. Thank you for your light in a dull world. Extreme emotion. That man should be in power. That's Aidan Doherty in Strabane in Northern Ireland. But then Bob in Whitehead says, how does it work without money? Who goes to work? What do you do?
Okay, you ask me that now?
Yep.
Okay. The way it happens is the system has to fall. People have to lose confidence in their elected leaders. I have no control. At that time, when they try to solve problems, the camera goes back to the present day. where there's unemployment, protest signs, don't cut down the forest. As long as people buy lumber, they're going to keep cutting down the forest. The stupidity of walking around with protest signs doesn't work. You see, the liberal points out to the shortcomings of our country, but does not offer an alternative. Communism, socialism offers no working alternative.
But isn't your future a bit like a communist world, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs?
That.
No,
That's
there's
a
money. They use money in communism and socialism.
Okay, well,
they have elite.
How does it work?
They have stratification. They have politicians. It's nothing like that. They're for the labor class. We're for eliminating the labor class as soon as possible through automation and technology, and people can go back to school and do what they want.
But okay, well, who's going to design the buildings then? That's a job, isn't it?
Okay. The buildings are already designed.
But you just said those buildings will evolve, and if the lifts don't work and Granny can't get to her exercise class...
We build the first city, and that city has the planners in it first. The planners and the people that work out the details. The second city, we level some of the old cities and keep some of it as museum cities to show people a better means of living.
A better means of living. Let's say everyone adopts your idea for a better means of living.
Okay.
Who's in charge?
Okay. During the transition from the old monetary system to the resource-based economy, which you didn't ask me how the new economy works.
We'll get to that.
During the transition, there will be trouble, crime, murder, everything you have today. If we get to the point of automation as we want it, I then believe that when people have access to the necessities of life, they do not steal. If you made a public library where anyone can get a book, that's wonderful. But they fought the women that marched for that. They threw rotten eggs at them. Let me finish. They threw rotten eggs at them. All the trouble you have for every bit of change, of social change, there was always a minority beat up, put in jail, you know, for the difference. So I'm saying this. If you do that, you hold back the future. You should not be afraid of ideas. Listen to all kinds of ideas and reject those that you feel won't work or question it.
But you didn't answer the question, Jacque. Who's in charge?
Okay. During the transition, the people that have studied the Venus Project and how it works are not in charge. You're asking me who makes the decisions. I held it in a month and a half. Then I joined the White Citizens Council alone. They hate foreigners and dissolved that in 1 month. Then in New York City, I said, what are some of the most backward people in the area? The consensus were the Arabs. I said, what makes you think they're backward? They still believe the earth is flat. So I said, boy, I better get in there and try to turn them around. And if I can't turn them around, I can't change society. Not a theory on paper, a nice little utopia where everything works well. That's BS, bad science. So I'm saying to you that I called up the Arabs and I said, can I meet with you? I called up the head of the Arab group. There's always a head of the Ku Klux Klan. I called him up and I said, I'd like to speak with you. He said in his accent, you are Arab? I said, yeah, I'm not an Arab, but I speak a little bit of many languages. So he said, from where your father he born? And that means, you know, where was your father born? So I said, in Lebanon. He said, very good, come and saw me, means come and see me. So I came to see him, and he said, you believe the world he round? I said, yes. He went, that means it can't be, in his terms. Then he pointed to his head to show me. He held up his hand like this. He said, if the world he round, all the people, and they say go. That means they have to support it economically during the transition.
Look,
we have to build...
There are a lot of people today talking about a better world in flowery terms and say that we need a change, we can't go on with what we're doing, we're going to pollute the earth, we're going to kill ourselves with bombs, but they don't pose anything. Nobody says, how do you get out of this? They're just beginning to ask those questions and say, we need to do something else. Jacque has asked these questions in 1929 when he saw the first the large depression. And it is then when he started to look around and say, This does not work. There are things in store windows, there are technical people, there are farms, there are people that want to do things and make things, but people are thrown out of their houses because the world is still the same place, but they don't have any money in their pockets. It's the rules of the game that we play by that are screwed up. So he proceeded, when he was a young man, to devise another...
Brenda in Hull says it will be a form of communism. You will never get away from someone who wants to dictate.
It's because he knows nothing about this system.
OK, Rob Keane in Wigan says, Jack, just say that you will make the decisions. I would be happy for you to do that. Aidan Doherty says, as long as there is power, evil people will want it. How do you stop them?
Okay. The Venus Project has a proposal for government operations in which there are no people in government.
Yeah, here we're getting to it now.
They didn't know that.
OK, no people in government. So who makes the decisions?
I'm going to show you.
Good.
Okay, so we have a computer with electrical tentacles into the soil. If the water table drops, that pumps water out there. If the nutrients change, that machine pumps nutrients out there. 9 months ago, a computer was developed that can handle 1,000 trillion bits of information per second. No group of humans can do that. So we move humans out because the future world is so highly technical, no human being is capable of handling trillions of bits of information input per second. Only computers can do that. So man is being put out. If you don't understand me, go to your supermarkets, you'll see new checkout machines where you pitch a card through and they're moving people out.
Jack, I'm sorry, we're going to go for another break now. Be back here soon. Once again, if you'd like to text in your questions or comments for Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows, please do so now. See you back here very soon. Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guests, Jacque Fresco and Roxanne Meadows. Right, Jack, just before the break here, you were saying, and I think I've understood this correctly, you were saying that computers will make the decisions.
Well, what we call cybernetics. Computers operate machines. If you go to an automobile company today, you'll see robots putting the wheels on and everything. The people are being moved out. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but I don't want the robots telling me what wheels I want.
The robots telling you what?
What wheels I want.
The robots can measure things better than you can.
Yeah, of course they can. But if we hand our power to a bunch of robots, come on, that's a dystopia, not a utopia.
You've seen a lot of lousy movies, like 1984, Brave New World, Atlas Shrugged, is written by Hollywood hacks, and they don't know how machines work, so the robots choke the designers. That's Hollywood, not reality.
But I don't think, well, I'm not ready to have a robot make my decisions for me, and I don't think,
you know... Check that out. Let's check it out.
Okay.
All right. You don't turn a generator to keep your lights going, do you?
No.
You assign it to robots because they can do a better job than you can. Now, in the early days, a pilot used to look out of an airplane, say, about a mile high. Today, the Army took that decision away from pilots, and they have Doppler radar, which hits the ground, bounces back, and says you're 5,300 feet, 3 inches off the ground. No human can do that.
No, the Eurofighter, for instance, can't be flown by a human being. It has to be flown by computers. It's so
will
unstable.
Be in the next 10 years.
Well, that's the case now. They've got people in them.
The
pilots.
Army is flying planes automatically.
But the pilot still has the last word, doesn't he? The pilot says, we're going that way, we're going up, we're going down.
No, the mission is the last word. In other words, they have guided missiles, and the guided missiles are set to hit a given target, and they are smart enough to sense metals and everything else, or go up the rear end of an airplane. Okay. It doesn't need to be steered by people anymore.
So what if the computers decide that there are too many people on the planet?
Oh, wait, what's your question? What do you do with overpopulation?
No, that's not the question. The question is, what if the computers decide that there are too many people and the food supply won't feed those people?
I want to answer that.
So would they say, oh, let's kill a few?
I will answer that. Computers do not do that. Computers and scientific machines are really extensions of human attributes, but they have no feelings. Machines don't care if you destroy a laptop in front of 40. They're going to say, we're going to get you this month, but next month for sure. They don't care. Don't you understand that?
Are you saying
that's a
then
human projection?
Jacque, are you saying then that computer programmers will rule the world?
No, not at all. They're under the guidance of the Venus Project if they agree. If they don't agree, they won't support it. If you have a cavalry in Poland, like in Poland they believed the cavalry was the most important thing. And the Germans believed war tanks were. And they slaughtered the hell out of the Poles because they couldn't get past that point. If the American and English people and French people don't realize what I'm talking about, they'll be blown to smithereens by their own stupidity. We are lousing up the air and the oceans, and that we know that politicians don't know what to do, because I've asked them. I've asked every politician that I've grown up with, and so, what do you do about this? How would you stop cars from hitting each other? How would you stop buildings from burning? I don't know. I don't know. They don't know what to do. They're businessmen.
Okay,
or lawyers.
Let me read a couple of texts here. Paul in Warrington says, wouldn't a new society need a leader, or do we lead ourselves?
No leaders.
And what if a person went against the grain? Who makes law?
Okay. We feel that people go against the grain because they've been damaged by society. In other words, if you have two children, I'm a great believer in environment shapes values. I believe that the dialect you speak, your facial expressions, you learn. Women move a certain way. Oh, did I see a gorgeous hat? And if a guy is brought up by women only, they'll move just like that. If you're raised in Italy, you say, come on, they eat. It's a good food. Is that an imitation? Socially offensive. So what you call decent people today would be considered criminals in the near future. The Supreme Justice of the Supreme Court will be considered a criminal in the future. Why? Because there used to be a definition of a criminal, and that definition was one who removes the thing from your house or your person without your permission. Today they've changed the definition. One who's caught, which is much better.
Well, let's talk about money.
Yeah.
Let's
Yes.
talk about money.
There isn't any money in our society.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an economy based on what's available,
Yes.
not money.
Not much.
So let me ask a question
Sure.
then. Say I'm living in this society,
Yes.
and I've got an old car,
Yes.
and I want a new car. But I don't just want any new car, because I'd quite like to have something a bit nice. How do I get that?
Here's how you
and
get
does that mean somebody else doesn't get that?
If she drives an old beat-up Volkswagen and you drive a Mercedes, if her brakes fail, you die. So we have no old cars. They weigh as much as a new car. So we reprocess them and turn out the best cars America can turn out. Let me explain that further. Instructor, a ballet instructor. But if you give everybody a right to their own opinion, you think man will ever get to the moon? Nah, not in 1,000 years. I'm not interested in that. Are you a rocket expert? Do you know anything about space travel? I don't want your opinion.
You know, if you have a society as it is today, and you have few nations and few people controlling most of the Earth's resources, you're going to have war, you're going to have poverty, you're going to have stealing, you're going to have crime. And then you make laws and try and make people ethical and say, don't steal, and you put them in jail and you call them evil if you do that. In a society we're talking about, you produce abundance as quickly as possible, and you make goods and services available to everyone. So you eliminate the need for stealing. So you change what you call human nature. It's really no human nature. You change human behavior by making goods and services available. So you don't have to make laws, don't steal. You don't call them evil because they steal. You get this good and bad, right and wrong from religion. But if you change the environment, you change the way people behave towards one another. If you make goods and services available so they don't have to go to work.
So as things go downhill, industry, one after the other, will fail. Meaning, a friend of mine owned an aircraft factory. This is true. His name was Berlin Joyce. And the government came and said, we're taking over your factory. This is during the Depression. He said, why? Because you haven't paid taxes on your damn equipment in 3 years. He said, I had no orders for airplanes. There's a Depression. Take the goddamn factory. Don't you see? If you make computers and she comes up with a chip 10 times as fast as yours, you can't even sell your production equipment anymore. It's obsolete. So I'm saying we're in a new kind of time where things are moving much faster and there's no adjustment. Politicians, which is an old system, our language was designed hundreds of years ago, so we can't talk to each other anymore. We talk at each other. We say, have a nice weekend. Why don't you say, have a nice life? Why just a weekend? Where do you get all that crap from? You get it from the society you're raised in. Kids are competitive because they have to run faster, be on a team that outpaces another, and I never worked that.
New World Order.
All right. Whatever they do will not work, the Illuminati, because their ideas, if you don't update your factory methods, you go out of business. If you're a nice guy and you own a factory and you don't like minimum wage, and he pays his help $10 an hour rather than $5.60. Then he builds a playground for the children of the women that work in his plant. He's a nice guy. Nobody's going to invest in your plant because they want the bottom line going up.
Well,
that's where they invest.
Companies have succeeded with that
kind of philosophy. So if you're a nice guy, you won't succeed. If you're a son of a bitch, you will. And you'll succeed in the monetary system. But you will have to outpace other companies. If you can put in, you know what industrial spies are? Like Douglas Aircraft puts people in Northrop, they pay them to see what Northrop is doing. And if you don't outpace them, come out with cheaper planes, better built, you go out of business. So the giants are getting larger, the small businesses are folding and automating, and they themselves will go out of business due to the fact that they're not operating in accordance with natural law. Now, here's what I mean by that. Man makes all kinds of laws and signs treaties with other nations. We violate most of the treaties we sign. So do other nations as a possible alternative. If the world people decide to join, we will share resources. If some nations won't, they won't decide to join. So they don't get the benefit of this total global system.
Okay, well, Sue in Cornwall says, when will Venus be built?
That depends on how much work you do, and if you like the Venus Project, how much work you do, and what people do. Roxanne and I have no power at all. We merely submit a possible alternative. It's up to people to say, I don't think it'll work, and it won't work then.
Jacque,
if people identify with us, then go to our website, thevenusproject.com, the Zeitgeist Movement, the UK project, where we're gathering all of the scientists and technologists who want to help, all the CAD and animation people.
There's a website called www.thezeitgeistmovementuk.com. That's one of the main ones, isn't it?
And the zeitgeistmovement.com and thevenusproject.com. The Zeitgeist Movement is the activist arm of the Venus Project.
Jacque, you're 93. I hope you don't mind me saying that, since I said it in the intro, and I know you don't mind saying it. Do you think you'll see this in your lifetime?
I don't think about that at all. I do the best I can to try to make it possible. If people don't recognize it, I've done all I know how to do. I have no, I'm not psychic. I just deal with probability. The probability is that we'll kill each other, that we will not achieve that, because the rate of damage is increasing. We're polluting the oceans, fish are dying, whales are dying, the atmosphere is being poisoned, the water table is rising up, and the rate of damage is so fast that we don't have enough time to wait for people to become smart. We want to make motion pictures to help people understand not what Fresco likes, but what the conditions are today. It isn't me that's saying I want to control people. I don't. No. But I've taken a lot of time out. You know, I'm 93 years old, and all I do is work on problem solving, not pointing out this guy's a crook and that system isn't working. What do you do about it? That's all the Venus Project is about. Making airplanes safer, cars safer, education for everyone, whether you got money or not, medical care from birth to death, doctors that are brought up to feel good because they see the end of poverty, hunger, slums, not a doctor that works for money. I don't trust those guys.
I'm going to say, look.
Actually, all the tickets are all sold out for both lectures. Okay. After this, we go to Mexico in a couple of weeks where he's doing another keynote speak lecture, and he's getting an International Design Award for 2009. And then we're off to El Salvador for a 2-day seminar about the Venus Project. So people all over the world are trying to introduce this the best that they can. Every single month we're in a new beautiful magazine, a very large spread with all of Jacque's designs in them practically. And all except for the United States. They are not touching it. But all over the world, they're doing
Let's look at another bit of your film. Because this is about, well, perhaps, Jacque, you can talk over it once it starts. I think this is to do with living at sea, isn't it? Can we get that film up now? Please?
Okay, you want me to describe it?
Yes, please. Here we go.
In the future, instead of taking one container off a ship at a time, the ship costs over $1 billion. It ties it up for 3 days. So the whole container section floats off the ship. That gives you 3 times the carrying capacity. All those ships are showing the whole container section removes people, some cities, hundreds of people. It will vary.
Is this underwater?
Instead of putting fish in seaquariums, we will have underwater observation where you can walk through tunnels, look at the reefs. Some people want to live in floating domes on the lakes with a glass bottom so you can see the bottom. You don't have to live in our cities. You can live wherever you want to.
This is a helicopter in the middle of that platform that you see.
And all the ships, and those are fish farms in the sea. You can't keep taking things out of the ocean without putting back into the...
More, I'm sorry, that's not her name. So, Carol says, 93 and sharp as a button, you're an inspiration. And here's one, I don't know who this is from. It says, a worthy vision, a genuine real start in the right direction. How do we survive the transition period?
I'm sorry about that, but the transition period will be painful. And if we get enough support, it'll be easier. But it's not an easy task. Moving from a monetary system to a resource-based economy. There's going to be trouble. I'm sorry. I have no control over that.
Okay. As we said, we would like to do a major motion picture to introduce people in an entertaining way what this future could be like. And at the end, we'd like to have people walk out and say, why don't we build this today? We'd like to give them something to advocate that's possible and that's positive for the future for everyone. And then we'd like to build a first city, a planning center where people can come and look at it and see how it works. And then people from different parts of the world could go and build one in their country.
So how, because you didn't really answer the question before, how do people get on board? How do they get on board?
Oh, they write us, they send us letters and say, what do you want us to do to help this?
And what do you tell them?
We tell them to become familiar with the Venus Project, look at our website, and then hold meetings at your churches, at clubhouse, wherever you belong. The Venus Project is not about architecture. It's about compression strength, so they talk about things in the world, not words.
But people can't even agree how the World Trade Center towers collapsed.
I'm sorry, that's the way they were.
All 3 of them.
Misinformed. I didn't make that world. I'm just saying there is another way. Physics, mathematics, chemistry does not cater to old beliefs. It gets out and says, by the way, your notion about some guy creating people and turning them loose in a beautiful garden, and then snakes that walked upright came and said, eat of the fruit of knowledge. That's a terrible thing to tell people. That Noah had 2 kinds of every animal. If he did, the ship would have to be a mile long. Who cleans all the crap out of that ship? In other words, the stories are so fabulous and stupid that people that follow that have never been educated.
I've got to say, I've always had a problem with that original sin idea, that I was born with somebody else's sin.
That's right.
You know, it's like, I don't mind committing my own sins and being responsible, but having somebody else's sin was kind of, you know...
Well, anybody that follows religion could be sincere but naive. I don't say religion is corrupt. It's based on lack of knowledge. Now, God says if you don't follow everything I recommend, the 10 Commandments and the other thing, you burn eternally. Now, that's not God. That's a psychopath.